Today's episode is brought to you by Clutchlessness.
Tanu.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, the Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Oh, not too much, my man. But how are you doing, my friend?
I'm great. I'm just great. I've had, what now? Not even 2 days. 1 day. Barely 24 hours to recover from this just massive disappointment. I don't care what anyone says about how they had a great season and blah, 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 blah. I don't care what their regular season record was. I don't care about stage playoffs at all. Not that they won any this season. I don't care about anything. You lost in the playoffs. You're a disappointment. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
Spoilers!
Spoilers. I'm certainly certainly over the fact that NYX almost 2 in a row. But we'll talk about that in just a bit. Of course, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping beforehand. We've got a place scoped out. I don't know how much we've committed into it, if we've called or whatnot, if we have anything committed for the place for Philly.
No calls or anything like that, but it's just a sports bar very near the venue. So we picked somewhere that was pretty close. And yeah, we're just going to basically post up, on Saturday night. And again, I don't know if you said it or not. I was definitely phased out a little bit. But yeah, impromptu meetup Saturday night.
Yes.
A place called Palladium. I don't know. It's a fun, clever name.
We'll post.
It's got
we'll
at
post
least
a link
7
to it.
different pronunciations.
We'll post a link to it in the grand finals chat and on Twitter and all that good stuff. So if you are going to be at the grand finals, come stop by, have a drink with us. They have some wings. Actually, hold on. I can't necessarily recommend wings.
You think you're home. You think you're going to be home when that happens. Flembium. Yeah,
maybe we can import some wings into Philadelphia.
Just bring them. Well, I know if Thornrain drives out there with us, I'm hoping to pack his stomach so full of chicken wings that he has trouble driving the rest of the way before we leave Buffalo.
Yes, that's exactly what I want for the person driving 8 hours to have trouble driving the rest of the way.
Is his son old enough to drive? He can drive. It'll be fine.
Yeah, putting a 16-year-old that I don't know in the car, that makes me feel even better.
Just play Smash Brothers in the back seat. It will be fine, I promise. But in all seriousness, though, we will be eating cheesesteaks at the grand finals, Blevins, because we will be in Philadelphia.
That's true.
And to eat anything else would be ridiculous. I also won't vouch for the cheesesteaks at the location we're going to, but I hear the beer will be cold. And I think that's what's going to be most important for this particular event. If you want, I will almost certainly be finding a resident cheesesteak establishment before we head back and leave for the night. So you guys can always follow me there if you want to. I will be the large bearded gentleman screaming about cheesesteaks. So yeah, it should be easy to find.
Yes.
We're really, really excited. We had a really good time last year at the grand finals, specifically at our hotel room, which was constantly on fire, if you were to believe the alert system. So hopefully we get a slightly better experience as far as sleeping.
Although that 3 a.m. pizza, that Stoop pizza was so good.
Nothing beats a New York Stoop pizza. That we did figure out with a certainty, but I think the cheesesteaks at 2:30 in the morning might be somewhere on the similar level. So we'll have to wait and find out. But yeah, really, really excited about meeting you guys there. Hope you guys are able to join us. Again, the grand finals chat in Discord is up. Use it, post, let us know you're going. We will let you know what time we're going to be at the event. We did get the I don't know what level of pass or what level of access we officially got, but we are going to be doing some of the media day style activities.
As far as I know, and unless they physically restrain us, we are doing it all.
we're pretty difficult to physically restrain.
True,
So
true.
we should hopefully be able to get there, hopefully make some content for you guys. I know we did some kind of live interviews on the spot last year, maybe something similar to that as well. Keep an eye out on Twitter for those, as well as our Twitch. Last year we were able to stream them directly to our Twitch.
As long as we have the physical capability, i.e. the Wi-Fi or whatever in the venue actually works, and that we don't get node from Blizzard, I'll live stream it.
Yeah, so you'll definitely be getting some content from us that weekend. Keep an eye out for that. And yeah, if you are going to be there, we'll get you the time. But Fladium, Philadium, something similar, we'll link it as well. It's a cool name, I promise. Once you see it, maybe it will be less stupid sounding. But it sounds bad when you say it out loud, but I like it reading it.
It looks great, but is maybe not the best when you're saying it. But yeah, so if you do, make sure that you check that out. And then if you have either certain, I don't know what or who we're gonna have access to, but if there's a certain player or maybe a staffer or someone that you would like us to maybe do an interview with, let us know in the show suggestions channel, because we only have one show that we have pretty much already planned out, and we'll be talking about it soon before the grand final. So put all the show suggestions. If there's a player that you want us to get, if they're there, we'll interview them for either team. And, we're going to just kind of, last year we just kind of bounced around, and when we saw someone who was open that didn't look physically disgusted by us, we went over and we're like, hey, do you want to do an interview? And they're like, well, we're kind of contractually obligated to. And we're like, okay, great. Great, let's do this. But on the real, all the players and people that we interviewed were super cool about it. So, and also it's their job to do these interviews. So let us know who you want us to in the show suggestions, text channel, and Discord. And if you're not in the Discord, now is the best time to do it, because we're going to have pretty exclusive access. Not exclusive, but pretty, I guess, not everyone is going to have access. Yeah, pretty inside access into the media room. So, let's move on here. Of course, in the world of High Noon Productions, Blackwatch Report is continuing trucking on. They have a new episode later this week. I saw some chats between them, and Thornton might be able to confirm or deny when the episode's going to be. Sometime this week is the word that I have from them. So, new Blackwatch Report is going to be coming up. And as I alluded to previously, Deathblow, we got a fun little show coming up next week.
We do, and just to give you a brief update on Blackwatch Report, Thorne's telling us it's going to be a day late. It's Wednesday this week, but it is at the normal time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on their Twitch channel. So you guys can check that out. But as far as next week goes, we are hoping to have some special guests on to represent the fan bases from both San Francisco and Vancouver, our grand finalists. These are community members. These aren't staff members. We do assume that it would take a little bit of time to get things approved, and you don't know who's going to be there ahead of time, so that was impossible to do early. And also, they're going to be busy and focused, and anybody that is available will be made available to us at the press meetings and things like that. So we'll get our opportunity.
We'll get all those lame, boring people at the event. We want some real fans here.
But if I'm being honest, San Francisco and Vancouver, while not dark in our Discord, are not the most heavily represented fan bases. So I'm really excited to get an opportunity to kind of pick the brain of some people that are involved in the communities for each of these teams individually and respectively. They're going to help us do a bit of a deep dive and dig as deep as we can into the actual matchup itself. Try and figure out who's gonna come out victorious here, and what I think is got to be the most hype possible matchup. Like really looking at the numbers and starting to break it down and analyze things. Man, I'm super pumped, we guys. As much as I don't want to tap dance on the Blevins because I know he's got his rant upcoming and things like that.
You don't want to, or
I no, I don't.
Or you're sick of doing it for the.
I want to wait a week and then be more savage. Is what I would ideally like to be doing. Give you a little bit of time out of respect for our friendship, and then
to get over it, and then just open the wound.
Right, and then out of respect for our friendship, just absolutely destroy you in every way I possibly can. But yeah, so we're going to be, and I also want to talk to them about what their communities are doing to celebrate. How what do they have planned for their fan meetups and things like that. So if you are in either the San Francisco or the Vancouver region, I hope you guys definitely tune in next week. I think you're going to really, really enjoy those episodes, and hopefully we can meet some or get some new listeners from those fan bases as well. Just by bringing in these guests, talking to them, and really focusing in on their two teams, because that's all that's left. They're the only ones left here. So it would be silly to talk too much about anybody else next week, and we're really excited about that. So make sure you guys stay tuned.
Yeah, I have the somewhat ulterior motive to try to eke out a little trash talk between the two. I don't, I'm not putting any words in any of their mouths. I'm sure they're both very, very respectful representatives of their communities.
Well, we'll see what we can do about that.
But I know if I was going in one of these, I'd be locked and loaded, ready to talk some smack. My thought behind it was like, I want to get like the UFC fight card where they're like, like the old Mortal Kombat poses, like facing off and like at the weigh-ins. That's what I want. I want some of that little bit of like, even if it's not real animosity, but like that like weigh-in. Sometimes those guys, there is some animosity there, but I don't think there's any actual animosity. But I do want to see some trash talk. We'll see what happens. Anything.
I prefer the weigh-ins where they like blow fake kisses at each other during the awkward like freeze frame for the cameras moments and stuff. I think those are just some of the funniest moments in sports.
Yeah.
When those go comical instead of violent.
Yeah, they are. Well, I like the ones where one guy is taking it way too seriously, and then another guy is like eating a bag of chips or something.
Right. Like
the one guy's like, "What are you talking about, bro?" And the other guy's just like, I don't know what he's like wearing, like heart pajama pants or something like that. That's always funny to me when they both are like hate each other. Like that's good every once in a while, but it gets boring. Yeah. But speaking of boring, let's talk about what we did last week. Perfect transition. Definitely anything fun and exciting for you.
Football. So I know obviously the esports fans are big on that. I did, however, get some Overwatch League merch in finally. We've talked about and mentioned the Coke bottles that came out. If you are viewing live, I did get mine in.
Nice.
So you can kind of see these here. There's the Coke Zero and the regular Coke. Different ones. I got the Overwatch League logo, the Overwatch logo, and then I got Toronto Defiant and Houston Outlaws in each color.
Nice.
They're very cool. I like them a lot. I bought a shelf so that way I can display them behind me. You can see them on the stream, on YouTube, things like that. But you need a drill to put a shelf in, apparently, and I didn't put two and two together on that, so it's not up yet. But I will work on that, and hopefully for next week's episode, you guys will have a slightly better backdrop than the same jerseys and then the dry erase board that fell down months ago. And stuff like that.
Yes, we'll soon have Coke bottles that will fall down.
But yeah, that will just be tragic.
That's
so
true.
hopefully,
That would be tragic.
Hopefully, I really do put in the shelf well and use the braces it comes with.
Yeah, at the very least, if it falls down, you know exactly whose fault it is.
Yes, I'll be blaming you for distracting me while I was trying to do it. But yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I know everybody's super interested that the Bills are still 2-0, still undefeated. Get out of our way, NFL.
Nice.
Coming for you, holding that Vince Lombardi trophy at the end of the year.
It wouldn't be the Bills if we didn't get our hopes up really high, really early, just to have them crushed down in the mid to late parts of the season.
I don't know what you're referring to.
I'm only referring to every single year except for 2 years ago. 2 years ago when we made the playoffs. Okay. See, I know something. For me, again, I still forgot that football was happening. So I guess I'm imparting my common esportser mentality on, so we can keep the show relatable, not knowing a thing about what's going on with football. But yeah, TFT grind for me still. Lots of it, just all the time. Good stuff. But enough about us. Let's move on and talk about the tournaments that happened last week. The tournament, not the tournaments, the matches that happened last week. I'm all out of it already.
Do you know what game you're talking about right now?
It's tournament talk.
I have no idea what game I'm talking about right now. But let's quickly go over, and I mean quickly. Let's not even talk. Let's just not even talk about it at all. We already know what happens. But we got, on Thursday we had the Hangzhou Spark beat the Atlanta Reign 4-0, knocking out the Reign. San Francisco Shock beating the Los Angeles Gladiators, knocking out the Gladiators there. On Friday, the most anticipated match that I've had in quite some time ends in heartbreak and destruction for me as the Vancouver Titans win the very close 4-3 over the NYXL. NYXL still has a chance, though. Still has a chance. But we move on to Saturday, and the San Francisco Shock continue their tear, destroying the Hangzhou Spark 4-0, eliminating the Spark. And on Sunday, my chance at redemption, my one last glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel, quickly dusted by the San Francisco Shock as they beat the NYXL 4-0 and ending the grand finals hopes for myself and all New York fans alike.
Yeah, I've literally never gotten a mid-match dejected, angry message from you about New York and like in the middle of their match.
Yeah, it was after match 2. It was after map 2. I knew it was over after map 2. I knew it. I knew it was happening.
And I was a little mad that the one time you do is the one time I'm not watching live. Like I was too into football at the moment and needed to watch it on a VOD. But yeah, it was, man, disappointing to say the least. And after last week especially, I think there was just no sign that this was coming, right? And not the loss, right? The loss was very much within the range of outcomes here for this team in New York, going against an opponent the quality of San Francisco. But after doing so well in week 2 of the playoffs, coming out Friday night, getting the big 7-map performance against Vancouver, it was great. It looked like 2 of the top tier teams in the league kind of going to battle against each other. And I got to be honest with you, Blevins, I was fully convinced that these players had learned how to chew properly and completely, chew, swallow, get some multiple chews in and be able to get the food down. I didn't think we were going to be having any more choking conversations about this team this year. And then they come out against San Francisco, and I just can't come up with a better word to describe what they did. Choking doesn't have to mean one and done, or in the case of double elimination bracket, the one and done.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to mean you just got in there and you left right away. It's just got to mean that you don't show up at some point. And that was really what it felt like on Sunday against San Francisco. In their defense, San Francisco's on a 16-map win streak. They are cruising right now through the lower bracket since the very moment they should have been on the payload and weren't against the Atlanta Reign. They've literally been unstoppable, just on a tear. New York definitely was on the wrong end of that particular freight train and at the wrong time. But from a fan perspective, from somebody watching it, when you look at this, Blevins, how do you categorize it? I'm tempted to call it a choke. I'm not super decided on whether or not this counts or qualifies. But what do you think as somebody that's invested in the team's success?
I think you can call it a choke in the sense that they were put in a position where they could have at least put up a fighting chance. Now, you take the Shock's previous performance out of it and just look at they are a team in the playoffs at this position that has won the games leading up to the losers bracket. If you take out the sports magic of the reverse Bambino from the C9 propelling the Shock into dominance, you look at it as a match that on paper should be close. At least it should be even. It should be close. You can make an argument. I think you can make a legitimate argument for either team to win that game in a close match. And that was anything but a close match. New York obviously did not even get they did get close to taking maps, which is almost it's almost harder for me watching that game and watching this team because it felt so much like it just reminded me of back in when I would play basketball and watching basketball and even just watching sports or even esports over the years. It's like there's these moments where you're going to be put into a position where you're the underdog in some capacity. You're either behind or you're in a very close match, and it doesn't matter what is on paper. It matters, can you rise to the occasion? Can you rise to the occasion and actually put your best foot forward and actually perform when it absolutely matters the most? And New York has never done that, with the exception of maybe stage 2 playoffs of season 1. Maybe. But they've never been in a position where they've faced off. I mean, for in their credit, there have not been a lot of games where they have been the underdog or it's even been close, for what it's worth. Like last season, very rarely happened. Most of the games they lost were like they were very clearly ahead and they choked or they didn't perform how they needed to. But in this season, they had the chance to be up against an equal or maybe someone who's greater, very close nonetheless, and they didn't even get close to putting up a fight. Now, if NYXL loses another 4-3 match like they did against Vancouver and they put up a really good fight the whole time, I don't think I'd be having this conversation. I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to wipe my hands to this. Maybe if they just played a little bit better. Like, there's still no clutch factor there. Like, they still didn't clutch it out. But you
could be proud of your boys. They would have put together an outing, a performance to be mentioned in the history books or whatever. But
what my coach would always say when we were in these sort of championship or like end of season type of moments is like, leave it all out on the court, or leave it all out on the stage in this case. Leave it all out on the map. Like, don't hold anything back. There's no love lost. Like all these sports cliches, like give it your all, put it out there, and what will happen will happen. You can't worry about it more than that. This was an embarrassment for NYXL fans. We should all feel bad about that match. It was like, I mean, credit to San Francisco, because I don't want to take anything. I'm not trying to say this to take anything away from San Francisco, because they are on a tear. They're an absolutely amazing team right now. But NYXL absolutely choked in that match. They didn't come out. They just like, even on a map-to-map basis, every single one was a disappointment in a different way. Like, they come out on the first map on Lijiang Tower, they win the first one pretty big, and it's like, okay, a team that has some clutch factor and some, like, they've got some momentum building, and then just completely fall flat map 2. Like, they like win the first fight, or no, they lose the first fight, San Francisco takes, then they, and I'm using air quotes here for the podcast listeners, win the next fight, but they never take the point because San Francisco keeps delaying and doing these crazy things. And like, you can tell San Francisco has this like intangible, obviously they're very good, there's tangible skill there, but they have this intangible sort of, like, I can only describe it as like a clutch factor. They're playing out of their minds because they know what it's like to have lost, and they actually cared and they tried and they pushed forward. New York won that fight, but it didn't matter because San Francisco kept coming back. They were staggering, like these things that you'd look at it and be like, this is unconventional. Why would you just take it back? But they knew they made the decision in the moment and they executed on it. And San Francisco, like from that moment on, I'm like, oh, this is not going to go well for New York. They're playing 2 by the books. They're playing like this is just a regular match. Like, I'm sure they're trying and I'm sure they wanted to win, but San Francisco's on another level, that playoff level that you need to be in order to win a championship, and New York is showing none of that. So, long story short, this loss, like, irrespective of it being a 4-0, this loss has hit me, I think, a little bit hard. Maybe it's just because it happened yesterday and I'm still like recovering from it, but like this one hit me pretty hard. Like this was probably the most disappointed I've been in New York in a while, because it's like, even against Philly last year, it's like, yeah, they lost a match they should have won, and that really stinks, but they should have won it. Like, they were given, like, they blew it, okay? You can come back from that. This was like, you just had the opportunity. You've been here before. You've been, like, all the things, and you just didn't even show up. That's what hurt me the most. as a fan,
Yeah.
obviously, not physically. But
Yeah, and for me personally, as somebody obviously far less invested, I was disappointed in a different way, and I think it to me. Well, let me ask you this before I get into kind of my aspect of it. Where do you put the blame for the loss for New York? Where do you heap that your disappointment? Whose lap do you dump that into? On this the day after the result, when it's as fresh in your mind and it's as gut instinct and as guttural as it can possibly be. Where do you turn with your rage and your blame?
It's got to be the coaching. It to me, it's got to be coaching, because it's not. The players are not going to actively not play bad. They're not going to actively play bad. They're not trying to play worse than they normally would. The coach, at the end of the day, in my mind, and regardless of whether this is developed enough yet in Overwatch League and esports, is irrelevant to me. It's on the coach's plate to have the obviously the players need to be making the right strategic decisions. They at a macro level, but they also need to be. They are in charge of having the players' mindset ready for the game. And I don't think that this game was an accurate portrayal of New York's skill. I mean, maybe San Francisco has gone Super Saiyan and no one's close to them anymore. I don't think that that's the case, but throwing that possibility out, I think they just didn't go in with the right mindset. They weren't prepared enough. And I don't know what exactly to pinpoint it on, but in my mind, whatever it is, it's on the coaching staff to have the players ready for this, to even if you have to have a one-on-one and tell SBB, hey, man, I know everyone is equal on this, blah, blah, but at the end of the day, you're the guy, right? You're the captain. Or whoever it is. Maybe it's not SPV, but if you have to make a call and execute, the ball's in your hands, man. You make the call, the team follows you through this, through thick or thin. You have to clutch it, and even just something like that can get you, because it felt like that for Sinatra. Sinatra has that sort of prowess, it seems, to take these sort of almost unorthodox lines. And now it's results oriented, he did well, so I'm praising him. But regardless of that, in the moment, it's Sinatra is making these huge plays and crushing it, and just I don't think NYXL had that sort of. They didn't have that play at all.
No.
And
I'm 100% with you in where I put the blame, and it's funny. It's the same person I blame for their disappointing early exit last year as well, and it's still the coaching staff. And it's funny because this time, at least, I think it was a different scenario last year. This time it wasn't X's and O's. I do think they showed throughout the playoffs they had a plan for the meta.
Mm-hmm.
They knew how to play it. It was a good plan. It worked. It got them to map 7, map 7 against Vancouver. It got them that deep into the winners bracket side of things. But to me, it was the mental game here is where the coaching staff really fell short. And funny because I don't know that I really had this thought at all until it was over. And hindsight's 2020, and that's great. And we can talk about this till we're blue in the face. It's easy to talk from our chairs, right? It's much more difficult from the chairs of the head coaching job for New York. So I don't want to heap too much on them. It's at a certain point, some of it does have to come down to the players. But if your team struggles with clutch, right? Okay, so you're down 3 maps to San Francisco. Your whole season is ending, right? And who is the one player on that team, Blevins, that you would bring in thinking, if there's one person on this bench and on this team that can come in and turn it and can come in and save it, who is it?
I mean,
you're laughing, and I know you've got the right answer. But who is it?
I can't bring in Pine when he hasn't.
It's Pine.
Seen...
It's got to be Pine. And you're 100% correct. You can't bring him in that scenario. Why? Because you didn't use him all year. What do you have this guy on your roster for if you're not going to use him in that moment? If you need it to happen in one map, if it has to go down, there's no other scenario. Who is that player that has that clutch? I don't care what the right positioning is. I'm going behind those idiots, and I'm going to shoot 4 of them in the head before they know I got here. McCree's viable in this meta. Is it ideal? No, but you're throwing a Hail Mary. Put the guy out there. See what you can do. But you can't do that when for all we know, he's still in Korea because you went 4 stages of the Overwatch League trying to force Pine down our throats, or not Pine, trying to force Flower down our throats at random intervals and random times. If you change Flower's playtime for Pine's playtime throughout the course of the season, the man is able to come in, step in, and try to help your team. So what is he doing on the roster? Why didn't you move him for somebody that might have been able to help you if you didn't think his hero pool fit the meta that you were facing on the season? Right. What did he stick around for? We've been talking about them needing to trade the man since literally before the season started. We were able to see it from a mile away. You can't use all these DPS players. Do something about it. Send someone somewhere. Find something else that helps you. It's just... he's the X factor, the element that I think can allow this team, that can put the team on his back when they need it. There's no sports team ever in the history of professional competition that's never at one point needed that one guy, the quarterback of your team, to put the offense on his back and move you down the field and overcome penalties and mistakes and turnovers. Every team has somebody that they look to in those moments.
Right.
Who is it for New York? Crickets.
It's no one right now.
If we don't know, nobody knows, right? I watch every single match of these guys. You watch every single match of these guys. If there's one person on the roster that has that capability, it's Pine, and they don't use him for that. Right. So I'm not saying they're wrong either to not use him. Maybe I don't think his hero pool was great at any point during this season, but I think his hero pool's better than Flowers. I think he's a better player than Flower is. At the only time I've seen anything different was 2016 World Cup. Right. And I'm not sure Pine didn't play at a higher high last season in the Overwatch League. So I'm not even sure Flowers ever been as good as Pine was. Like, if on each of their best days, I'm thinking right now Pine is a slightly better player than Flower. Okay. And listen, I'm glad they went to Flower on their last map and said, hey, we've got to do something different. Maybe the kid's got the juice. It's better than not doing it.
Right.
But you set yourself up for the wrong one because this guy's shown you. Listen, and we all joke about Spider Pine and blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of holes in Pine's game you can point to and say, he does this wrong, he does this wrong, he does this wrong. And if I'm picking a Widowmaker player to build my team around, it's probably not Pine. Right? He's probably like 7th or 8th on that list. But if I've got one fight, if I've got one map, if I've got one match to win, and I need a Widowmaker, it's Pine. It's obviously Pine. Yeah. Almost 10 out of 10 times, I don't even care. Because what matters is the moment, and that's what playoffs are about. Playoffs are about moments. Playoffs are about players, individuals, teams coming together, doing what needs to be done to overcome the obstacle in front of you. And anything that doesn't get you there is wrong. And coming up with all your listen, it's going to sound a lot like we're talking about Houston here in a minute. Like your idea, what didn't work is on you, right? And you have to have the flexibility to change it. And the teams that are succeeding are the ones that have shown the flexibility and the willingness to change. And does it make me nervous as hell for Vancouver when they sit down at the playoffs with a main tank that's not played 1 minute for them all season? Yes, absolutely. It took so much courage and literally courage, guts for the coaching staff to make that decision. Yeah, they're in grand finals. Same thing to be said for San Francisco. Who are their tanks now? Who's the main tank from their roster that's on the MVP ballot? They took an MVP candidate main tank and benched him. Okay, that's terrifying. That's a little bit crazy. Okay, but crazy like a fox, maybe. Like, right, it worked. They're there. They're still here. Yep. And so at the end of the day, it's fine to make those gut decisions. It's fine to make the safe decision, Flame. It's fine to go, we're just going to play goats, okay? It's fine to go, this is the lineup that I think gives us the best overall. But don't limit the ability for your team to move, to be fluid, to adapt, to react, to do something in the moment. And that is to me where I think New York fell short on the season overall. It was they lost their heart when they perma-benched Pine. They lost their ability to just step on somebody's throat and close out the match and to end somebody's season when they went completely away from their player. I mean, he gave them swagger, right? Yeah. Like, I think back to their production, like can't think of the word for it, right? But they would record these bits or these little marketing things, and it was Pine's out there talking smack and joking around with SBB or with Jonak or whoever's there. And where were those this year? Where was that New York attitude?
I blame that on the Overwatch League production, because that's not the teams that are making those things. At least not
no,
those
but
ones,
but they sat down with the players and talked to them.
Sure, yeah.
But I'm saying, where was the fight? Where was the? I don't remember the New York ones this year.
Yeah.
I remember Pine laughing about the low quality of an opponent or something, like saying so. That's good, right? Like,
yeah.
People hate Dogman because of what he said about Arrow or some of the other comments he made, but they had the fire to go out there and to beat San Francisco, who nobody's been able to take a map off of in these playoffs.
Yep.
Except for them. There's something to that. You hate the man if you want, but Dogman gets it.
Yeah. No,
he knows
100%.
what the mentality aspect that it takes, and that's not something we've seen from New York since Pine left the stage. And it took me until they lost to really piece it together. So I can't really blame the coaching staff entirely for my hindsight coming to an answer that I didn't even ponder before the match. But at the end of the day, that's the job you're forced to do, right? Like you took on, you accepted that position, that job. Sports coaching, all this stuff. Listen, if you think it's not fair that we get to sit here as analysts and use hindsight, that's the world we live in. That's what that's what it is, right? Go turn on any TV right now. Go to the New York Jets market. Go to the Cleveland Browns sports. Sorry, Thor. Go to the Cleveland Browns sports talk rate. I'm really not meaning to do this to you. I know you're in chat, but go to their sports talk radio last week, right? Like, everybody's got hindsight. Everybody knows what they should have done after it happened. You have to just kind of take that with a grain of salt, but know your roster, know what you need. And I don't think New York values that clutch mentality, that killer, that edge. And I think you need that in this game. Similar to how, like, Seoul, I bashed them for, I mean, if this was them right now, I'd be ripping on them for being a shadow of what they could be if they just played their main six, and that'd be a little different because at least I've been saying it for 9 months or whatever it is, instead of coming up with it after the fact. But that's your job when you take a head coaching job. You've got to be the one to see those things. You've got to have the foresight to know, and I just don't think we've seen anything from Flower in so long. To make me think he's the one to turn to. I struggle to really kind of wrap my head around that. And I gave him a pass when it was working, but now it's not in the most spectacular way that it could have gone down. And it's a little perplexing to me. So
to put a bow on this segment, how many times did we see Scottie Pippen take a potentially game-winning shot at the end of a game that was important for the Bulls in the 90s?
I don't remember.
You can count it on 0 hands, is my guess.
I'm sure there was some regular season ones.
In an important game. We don't, it's not Scottie Pippen taking that 3 over, I don't remember who the defender was, but like, it's MJ, right? It's Kobe. It's Steph Curry. It's like, you know who the ball is going to. You know whose ball or whose hands the ball is going into at the end of the game. And right now, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Who is that for New York? Crickets.
There's so much talent on that team. It's crazy they haven't made it to a finals yet, to me.
Right.
Last year, obviously, being the much bigger disappointment, because this year there were 2 teams right there, I think, on their level or above their level. This was a challenge. And the true disappointment is just not showing up, not losing, but just not showing up.
Exactly. It's not. Obviously, I'm upset that New York didn't make it because I want them to make it. But from an objective standpoint, I'm not upset that the 2 teams that made it are worse than New York. I don't think that that's necessarily the case, but it's just that they choked. They choked. They were over it. And then their playoffs were on the line, and they found a way to choke against a team that they could have reasonably lost to, but they didn't. So,
D Hulky's in chat bringing your analogy full circle. Scottie Pippen, MJ, all those things. Scottie Pippen went to the Houston Rockets after he spent his time with the Chicago Bulls on Jordan. Okay, he made the playoffs as the star of that team. Gets there, it's the ball at the end of the series, and misses and chokes, and the Rockets are out of the playoffs. And that's it. That's
literally
right.
100% what we just saw.
They gave the ball to Scottie Pippen, and didn't play Jordan all season. So it's, I mean, maybe not Jordan. That's the part of the.
Well, they didn't play
the analogy that might fall short.
No, they didn't. Like in this case, Scottie Pippen is Pine. They didn't play Pine all season, although they did play Scottie. It's not a perfect analogy, but they didn't play Pippen all season. He was never the guy that got the ball. They brought him in for this, and he biffs it. Not that, like, you're right. Like Pine coming in right now in the world that we live in right now wouldn't have been the right choice. The right choice was to mix in Pine and actually use a player that you have been paying on your roster for the past year. And like, I don't know anything official about like how much of it is on him, because we know, we heard some stuff about how, he was burnout and all that, blah, blah, blah. I don't know any of the details on that, so I'm not going to factor him in here. But suffice it to say, like, you have at least theoretically an asset on your team. Either he doesn't, if he doesn't want to play or doesn't feel like why is he on the team? Like, nothing against Pine as a person. Why are you paying a guy to be on the team that you're not going to use?
Yeah, and if you think we're crazy, don't get too bogged down in that we're talking about Pine here. Nene was on the bench all playoffs too. He didn't play. I thought he showed to be better than Flower at all possible intervals. And I don't disagree that SBB Libero is probably their best kind of ideal default DPS lineup. I think they probably got that correct. But it was who was the reservist, who was the backup, who was the Hail Mary was what to me what they got wrong. And whichever one you want to go with, fine. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just a disappointing outcome here for a team that really looked, in my eyes, going into this week like a team that had it figured out, that was on the right there on the edge of it, right on the verge of making up for last year. And all it would have taken was an appearance to make up in the grand finals. They could have even choked there, and the whole conversation would have been a little different. Right. But
well, because they would possibly be able to literally hear me screaming out and barking commands from the crowd, but not here. So that'll be the end of NYXL season, and it'll take me a little time to recover, but I'm sure I'll be back and pepped up and ready to support them again next season. But let's talk a little bit about maybe not as extensively, but we're going to talk a little bit about Atlanta, who also kind of went out in triumphant fashion.
Yeah, I feel like I have the perfect analogy for what the Atlanta Reigns season was as a whole, and it was just a big sugar high, right? Like just the whole thing. They were exceedingly average throughout the entire season until right at the end, and then they hit the high water mark. They have their homestand, and they're winless going into the homestand, which is in and of itself kind of crazy here. But I mean, let's look at it from the beginning. What was stage one for the Atlanta Reign? It was 4-3. That's respectable,
reasonable, but completely average.
But
slightly
very
above,
average.
But, yeah.
It was in the playoffs. It was good for the 5th seed going into those stage playoffs. But let's see, everybody north of 16 in the standings had 3 wins, so they were plus or minus away from being just the tiniest bit above the Washington Justice for stage one. So to give you a frame of reference, it was
completely mediocre is exactly
right. So an average start, fine. They're at least an average or better team, but now we go into stage 2, and now they're perfectly average because they're 3-4, so their record is 500. They're just
all things equal as they should be,
hanging out, right? And then now they're tired, Blevins. It's a long season. We get to stage 3. They drop those 5 games to start it out. And then going into their homestand, they snort 3 pixie sticks and get their sugar high started. Okay, you finish 2-5 on the stage, terrible. Go into stage 4, 7-0. Could not be better, right? They were just the hottest team going into the playoffs. Greatest thing since sliced bread. San Francisco's looking down at them. Vancouver's looking down at them. Everybody, right? Like San Francisco was also 7-0 on the stage, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Atlanta was the hottest team at the end of stage 4. Get to the playoffs, it carries over a little bit. They get the big win against San Francisco. The emotional high, the jump, I mean, you could see it when it happened, right? They freaked out. They lost their minds, deservedly so. It was a huge, very, very big moment. And then that was it. They crashed. They just completely crashed. 0-4 to the Hangzhou Spark to put them out of things. And that was following up the loss to New York, who they'd beaten twice in the regular season. So New York really took the edge off of what the Atlanta Reign had going for them. And from there, they could not get it back. So I think, for my money, easily the streakiest team. Obviously, I think in season 2. And just... We're talking about this all by way of, I think there's a lot of really disappointed Atlanta Reign fans. And I just want to put it in perspective, and I want to be as bluntly honest with you guys as I possibly can. You guys finished, I think, what is that, 5th? Right? Because there was 6 teams going into the weekend. They were,
either 6 or 5th.
Somewhere in that range, right?
It's top 6 for sure.
You're probably the 12th best team in the Overwatch League, talent-wise. If I'm being perfectly bluntly honest with you, just on paper talent, I feel like they're in the 10 to 12 range. This was a great season for the Atlanta Reign. So I know you guys might be, and you're probably not as disappointed anymore. You've had some time to get over it a little bit. And, right. Blevins is yesterday an hour, so we got to do 30 minutes on it. You know, that's just baked into when one of the hosts teams has something happen. We've got to spend the time on it. But I just want to put it into perspective. Atlanta dealt with a lot this year. DeFran coming in and then leaving. I mean, you look at what one DPS player leaving did to Toronto. They had to retool their entire roster. They went from 5-2 to 0-7 so fast you couldn't even see straight. And Atlanta did a great job of righting the ship, getting everything figured out, getting ready to go and ready to play in a way that we've seen other teams not able to do. They also managed a really, really long winning streak. Like going from stage 3 homestand last week to all the way to the last week of the playoffs before you get eliminated, I thought was just a really, honestly great accomplishment for the team. So yeah, I know you guys are disappointed. You should be. You wanted your team to win. They were in a position, could have really made a run for it. But I just hoping to maybe shift the public conversation about Atlanta and talk about their season in a much more positive light. I think the organizationally, managerially, coach wise, this team is in a very, very strong spot moving forward. I think they should be really, really excited. Try not to be too attached to your players, okay? Because some of them are going to move out and come back in, and I think that's good for you guys. Just build around Massa, man. That guy is nuts. He's absolutely nuts. Erster as well. Yeah, Massa, Erster, and I think Pakpo are probably just not going anywhere for this team. I think the rest is very up for grabs. I thought Baby Bay played very, very well. Probably above where I thought he would have, and I was higher on him than most people before the trade to acquire him. So I think he's a very useful piece. I do think there's some dead weight on the roster. It started early in the year. Kodak was hanging around and maybe not quite ready. I do think the off-tank situation is weird. I'm not saying Fred can't do it or FRD can't be that guy, but I'm worried about it, right? And if you don't want to be that streaky team, it's, you might want to have that dog man to talk some smack, but you need more of a calming force. Right now, the noise is overtaking the calm that Erster brings. Like Erster and Pakpo are your calm, and then you've got like Fred and Baby Bay and Dogman that are the hype. And right now, the hype outweighs the calm and Gator. You're not wrong. There's too much hype, too much meme, too much edge here, right? They're the edgelords, I guess, right? Without the negative connotation. Things got to be settled down and reined in a little bit. So expect some shifts to go on, but just props to the Atlanta Reign for putting together the run they had. I thought they had Hangzhou. I thought they would be able to keep it going a little bit longer, but it just didn't quite work out. I think it was just the greedy part of me wanting the rematch, right? Like it would have been a much more satisfying San Francisco story for them to have to go back through that team in order to get to the grand finals, right? It would have, I think, basically been the only thing to keep us from what I think has been like the perfect playoff so far. Anybody that doesn't like the playoff format because you don't think it decides the best teams,
Playoffs?
Find me better teams. Okay, so
right. I mean, the last 3 teams alive were 1, 2, 3. So
right, and we're 1, 2, 3 all season long,
right.
with the exception of like stage 1. San Francisco took a minute to get there, but
right.
You know, for almost the entire season, these are the 3. And you can talk about meta shifts and how it does. And I really just believe that the best Overwatch teams are the teams that are the best at Overwatch. And I don't think it needs to be more complicated than that when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. And the meta matters, and it affects individual matchups versus individual opponents. But if you're the best team in the league, you're going to survive to the grand finals, and maybe you don't win it, but man, and New York did a good job kind of disproving that last year, but Exhibit B is pretty squarely in the pro playoff category. So yeah, it's been a blast so far, and I'm very excited to see the end of it here coming up.
Yes, and let's move on here, and
let's break it.
So we probably won't go too deep into the nitty-gritty of this because we're going to be talking a lot, almost exclusively about this next week. But Deathblow, we're going to be looking at least at a high level at Vancouver versus San Francisco. And I noticed that you found some very interesting stats about their matchups here.
Yeah, so these teams have met 4 times throughout this season, and on paper, I can't imagine there's 2 teams that have played against each other more throughout the year,
right?
Considering there were 2 stage finals that happened between these 2 teams. And I just wanted to take a quick look at each one of the meetings and then kind of look at some overall numbers to see really what we've got in front of us here and what we're looking at. So stage 1, week 2, okay? Vancouver coming out screaming. San Francisco's still piecing it all together and figuring it out. Stage 1 was very hit or miss for San Francisco. And Vancouver gets this one 3-1. Okay, they get, what is this? This is Busan, Kings Row, and Volskaya in their favor. The Shock take Route 66 in extra innings here. But the match was already decided.
Didn't matter.
No. But it was a big moment, I think, for San Francisco to kind of, we can hang with these guys. We can hang with, you know, these top teams. They weren't sure yet. So I think it was a big map for them. But moving on, we go stage 1 finals. Okay. San Francisco clearly got it together by the end of the stage, made it all the way into the stage 1 finals. And this one was one for the ages a little bit. I mean, as far as we know, I'm not a big stage playoffs guy, but this is one I can't explain away. This was a great match of Overwatch between these 2 teams. Vancouver did come out victorious here 4-3 in the 7 map set. Is it 7 or it was 7, not 8. But yeah, so a 4-3 win there. Wins on Rialto, Kings Row, Dorado, and Numbani for Vancouver, then Nepal and Anubis and Ilios for San Francisco. And that one was very back and forth. The tennis hold serve example rings very true to me here. And it just took Vancouver kind of breaking serve at the end when San Francisco picked Rialto, and Vancouver was able to take it down to really give Vancouver the edge in the season series between the 2. Fast forward a little bit. No regular season matchup in stage 2 between these 2 teams, but they did meet up again in the finals. And this was the golden stage for San Francisco. I think the 5-4 map win for the Vancouver Titans in the finals here may have been the first map loss of the stage for the San Francisco Shock.
They had lost a map to Shanghai earlier.
Was it like earlier in the playoffs or something?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. But obviously, this was the regular season golden stage here for San Francisco. Didn't drop a map throughout their 7 matches. Huge performance from them, and it carried them all the way through to the stage finals with the 4-2 win. Picking up, what is that, Li Jiang. Dropped Kings Row again. So I want to make a note of that. It's 3 Kings Row losses in a row here for San Francisco, and Kings Row's in the map pool for playoffs. So could be could be very, very relevant here again very soon. But we go on and we've got the Paris win for Vancouver, and then the rest of them, it was Lijiang, it was Gibraltar, blanking on that map. Oasis.
Oh, Oasis.
And Blizzard World go in the favor. Yeah, sometimes those little pictures don't quite do it for me. I need to see the point of the map I'm most familiar with. But that's not how the world works. So big win there for San Francisco, kind of bringing things back. This was very much the time when we were talking about these are the 1 and 2 teams, right? Mm-hmm. By the end of stage playoffs, people were whispering it. By the end of stage 2 playoffs, people were screaming that these were the best 2 teams in the league. Moving on, we did get another regular season matchup. They're in the same division, so we go to stage 4, week 5, for the 4th and final match between these 2 teams. And San Francisco's able to tie it up. Now it's regular season, so we don't go all the way to 7, but this did go all the way to 5, as we see Vancouver win Kings Row again, as well as Lijiang Tower this time. San Francisco takes Volskaya Industries, the new one. They take Busan, Paris, and then
Rialto. No. What one is that?
It's the one that came in stage 3 or 4. Why can't I remember the name of this map? It is going to drive me. Havana.
Pretty
sure it's
Havana. Yes, that's right.
It's the one that took me 3 weeks to play in the game. One thing, they came out and I couldn't get a match on it to save my life. The season series is now tied 2-2 in match record between the 2 teams. But Blevins, let's look at the maps. The maps will clearly, outside we know who the best Kings Row team is, right? But the map's got to clear. There's got
to be a clear victor here, if not in the match series, the map series, right? It's got to be.
Yes, got it. There's no way there's not.
Who is doing the math along the way?
Oops, they're 11 and 11. Completely evenly split down the
scripted.
I don't think you can script this. Hollywood would throw it out because it's too unbelievable.
It's too on the nose.
But an 11 wins and 11 losses here for each of these teams on maps against the opponent. Man, I said it before. I'll say it again. I'll say it again next week. These are the 2 teams that are meant to give us the knockdown, drag out, go the full distance finals that I wanted last year.
Yeah,
and I sat in that crowd, came back a second day for.
right.
And got no real competition whatsoever out of. So I'm really hopeful that in our one day, man, it's gonna be crazy. If it does go the distance, just the sheer amount of Overwatch that's gonna be played. It starts at 3 p.m. I could easily see leaving, walking out the door at 10 p.m. on Sunday.
Yeah.
If it goes the full distance. And I sure hope it does, because we've got the room on Sunday night too, so we don't gotta drive back. We've just gotta go out and go drinking again before we drive home the next day. This one's going to be crazy. Just another couple notes. We've kind of touched on these already, San Francisco, though, with the 16 map win streak heading into these finals, just not lost a single map since the C9. You cannot give enough credit to the coaching staff here for San Francisco. Right. What they were able to do to kind of turn this team around. We talked about, I think the phrase you were looking for earlier, talking about New York, was adversity. They don't respond well to adversity. San Francisco can't have possibly responded better to the adversity they faced in these playoffs. Again, if you haven't seen the look on Moss' face when the C9 happened, go watch it. Your heart will break along with his in the moment. Something like that can break a team. I can't stress it enough. They could have never won another map again for the rest of the season, and instead it's going the opposite direction. So big shout outs to Krusty, big shout outs to the players. A coach can do all the right things and say all the right teams, and if you don't have the right group of guys, it's never all about the coaches. It's never all about the players. It's always about the combination of the two. It's getting the right mix, and I think there's really something here to be said for what San Francisco's got going on. And not that there's anything wrong with what Vancouver's got going on either, but it's just something's in the water here with San Francisco. They're playing out of their minds, but Vancouver does come in. They had the trip through the winners bracket, so I'm not going to sit here and say they're at a disadvantage because they dropped maps. Right. They got convincing wins over Seoul, the Gladiators, the Nailbiter versus NYXL that goes 4-3. it's been a while since San Francisco's been in a closely contested match, and the last time it didn't go well. So maybe that speaks to what'll happen if it gets close again. I really don't know. I can write the story either way here,
Right.
with ease, and really get myself to believe it. And that just tells me that we're in for a hell of a matchup coming up in 2 weeks here. And I'm really excited to get together with the community members that represent each of these teams and really go through this, get a little bit of that smack talk that we were hoping for. We'll have to give them a little prodding in that direction and tell them, have something prepared. Otherwise, we're just going to make fun of both teams the whole time.
Yes.
If they're not going to smack talk, me and Blevins got it. We'll just rip them both to shreds.
Yep.
And go from there. But I guess early take, Blevins. Who are you? Do you have a horse in this race? Who are you rooting for? They both beat.
I was
going to
say they both.
I
I thought it would be easy because I'd be like, oh, whatever team New York didn't lose to, but they both beat them. I mean, I kind of am leaning towards Shock, just because all the contenders truthers are going to be so unbearable if Runaway wins the first Overwatch League Grand Finals that they're in as a team. It's like,
well, I do think one thing's for sure: if they don't win the Grand Finals, we were right all along, and Vancouver was just Runaway was not Overwatch League ready.
I mean,
just not good enough.
if they win, what we can say is that Runaway didn't win. The Vancouver Titans did.
No. Runaway's not here.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Runaway is a contenders team that is not playing.
Get out of my
currently
face,
in
Runaway
Overwatch.
fans.
Yeah.
And they're not Overwatch League level, and I know that because they're not in the Overwatch League.
Right.
Yeah, take that.
Just sign the whole team for it.
Truthers.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not hesitating. I would much rather root for Western players than Korean players. I'm waving the San Francisco flag. I'm pumped. I want to see them get the W here. I've always never understood people's dislike for Sinatra. He's got a bit of an edge to him, but like I get why people don't like Dogman. I mean, you're wrong, but I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've never understood that with Sinatra. He's like the lightest version of Dogman possible. Like you can see he's thinking it. It's like you can read it on his face, but he doesn't. Yeah. I feel like he doesn't say it. He doesn't say it too often. But so I've always thought he was a little underrated. There's always, maybe not underrated is the wrong word. There's always somebody in Discord wanting to tell you Sinatra is the worst player in the league and always super overrated. I never got it. I'm sorry to call out the three of you that said it all the time going into the season. You've been quiet for a while. I don't even know who you are to shout you out. And that's probably, you'd prefer it that way anyways. But yeah, I really want him to kind of get the W here. He's not going to be out there much, but I love Super too, and he's going to be a big part of what they've done this season. So you can't really take that away from him. It would be a big win for him. Moth's going to be on Team USA. Moth's great. I love the play of Moth, but like he's other than the reaction, it was completely involuntary. I prefer players with a bit more personality. So I'm like really trying to get behind Moth more. And like he lets us play do the talking, and he's been yelling this playoffs. He's been as loud as he's ever been in that regards, because he's been playing great. And right now, I don't know. To me, there's that sports magic element to San Francisco that makes me want to see them do it. And I think it would just, them winning, they're not going to roll over, right? The Vancouver's not going to roll over. And I just, more than anything, I don't want a one-sided affair here. And I just think San Francisco winning is the way where I'm guaranteed the close, the close whatever, like the 3 sets or whatever it's going to be. So yeah, I'm going to be definitely rooting for San Francisco, although probably not buying any merch because orange is just not a good color. But nonetheless, really excited.
I won't buy any merch for the specific team. I
like the Philly pin because I was rooting for them last year. Maybe I should root for Vancouver just because rooting for another orange team in the grand finals seems destined for disappointment. But,
I have the grand finals hat from last year, but I didn't get it at the grand finals. I got it on sale for literally 70% off like months later. So I don't know, we'll see. They have enough. They have, well, at least last year they had a lot of freebies and giveaway stuff that they were handing out and throwing to people. So we'll see.
Well, if you're going to be there, I actually remember reading this a little earlier. There's an outdoor fan fest this year. So starting 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you're at the event in the Wells Fargo Center parking lot, there's just going to be, I'm going to read it right off the website. Gather your friends and family and enjoy hours of free fun before the doors open at 1 p.m. To ticket holders, there will be a live DJ, several photo opportunities, face painting, giveaways, merchandise for purchase, and plenty of food and beverages, it says. Fun activities and giveaways from our partners, including Bud Light, Coca-Cola, Dream Seat, Fanatics, State Farm. What is the State Farm booth going to have? Oh, it's terrifying. Jake, if Jake's not sitting at the State Farm booth, I'm going to riot.
Oh, man, that would be such a missed opportunity. Such a missed opportunity.
In khakis, Tesla, Toyota, Upper Deck, and Xfinity. So there's going to be a little mini outdoor party going on starting 10 o'clock in the morning.
Just call it what it is. It's a tailgate, man. There's going to be a tailgate.
Listen, I'm from Buffalo. Tailgating means dousing somebody in ketchup and mustard, setting a table on fire and jumping off of an RV through it, funneling beers.
Hey, we can be the masters of our own destiny, okay?
I was just going to say, and I guess since I'm going, that's exactly what it's going to be this time.
I'm ready to take out a couple of chairs. You think I won't dive through a table? You kidding me?
If you're looking for us on match day, follow the ambulance.
Yeah, just look. I just want there to be a still shot of me people's elbowing a table down. Man,
baby bay elbowing? Isn't that what you're doing?
the baby bay elbow. I so wish that if New York was, because then if New York was there, I would have, like, I could heckle. I could really bring out my true colors as the heckler, and we could have the.
I'd get into it. I'd be drunk off of your excitement.
Yes,
and I would have gone full NYXL with you. For this.
God, I'm just getting so much. We need to stop talking about it because I'm just going to get depressed thinking about what could have been is me and trying to rally some.
We'll try. I'll try and do it anyway. I will try to go just shy of when we drove past the Patriots Stadium in Boston. Because
I was just talking about that today, too.
I will get kicked out of the venue if I do that.
We will not be invited back if that happens.
And right. So I'm gonna try to go shy of that, but as close as I can while still being appropriate.
This is what we need. We'll go full shock. We need a little mini basketball hoop and a ball so that we can have one. We need one other person. You will hold the hoop behind a Vancouver fan. We'll have someone throw me an alley-oop and I will dunk on the Vancouver fan.
We'll posterize everything. Yeah, no, absolutely.
We need 4 people because we need someone to film it too. So
Thorne and we've got his son.
There we go. We've got the crew. If you're wearing Vancouver gear, you are getting dunked on.
You're getting 300-pound bearded man on set. Say it's high noon.
That's the only way to prevent it is if you say it's high noon, then you'll know, or else you're getting dunked on.
And we'll immediately leave you alone.
Yep. All right. Well, with that, we will save the rest of the trash talk and game analysis to next week. So keep an eye out for that. But that is going to be it, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We have seen the end of the 2019
playoffs,
and we are moving into the big one, the big game, the big time. We're technically in the off week, but we're bringing an episode anyway with Vancouver Titans and San Francisco Shock representatives. Make sure to catch it. Twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. Not 100%. Keep an eye out on Twitter at High Noon Podcast for the time, and also on Discord, discord.me/High Noon Podcast. All the details will be there once we have solidified those. It will be in the next couple of days, but that's going to be it. We are at High Noon Podcast everywhere on the internet. Patreon.com/High Noon Podcast to support us if you would like. But, guys, that's going to be it for Deathblow. I am the Blevins, and remember, the only way to get out of getting dunked on at the grand finals is to say it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Okay, let's put the Kyle trolling to good use here. Let's take an informal poll. If you are rooting for San Francisco, at Kyle win and put a 1, and if you're rooting for Vancouver, at Kyle win and put a 2, but say nothing else.
Actually, at him this week too.
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
way,
let's
nobody
see it.
did it last week. Troll him. He's fine. He's a host.
One
It's like
person.
trolling me. You have no problem doing that.
Yeah, true.